Here's a question I hear all the time. If I already have a private medical opinion, why would a VA examiner disagree with it? That's a fair question, and it frustrates a lot of veterans. I'm going to explain this a little bit for you. The short answer is that the disagreement doesn't automatically mean that the private medical opinion was bad. And it doesn't automatically mean that the VA opinion is better. This is a very specific issue, and it usually means that two providers are looking at the case through different records, different documentation assumptions, different wording, or just different medical reasoning. Let's unpack that a little bit more. First of all, medical opinions are not judged by who wrote them. So it doesn't matter if you're a doctor, a PA, a nurse practitioner, specialist, they're judged by how well they explain their reasoning. So if a private provider writes a short letter with conclusions but very little explanation, I'm Dr. So-and-so and this is service connected, and the VA examiner writes a longer opinion with more discussion of the records, alternative causes are included, and the VA may give that longer opinion more weight. So length of the opinion doesn't matter. It's more about the reasoning. It doesn't mean that the private doctor was wrong. It means that the documentation may have been less persuasive. Second thing to consider, the providers may be working from different records. This is huge. This is why I say all the time, give me everything, upload everything when I'm doing a review, because a private provider may only have some of the treatment history. A VA examiner may have access to a broader file, or the opposite may actually happen where the VA examiner wasn't given the private medical evidence. So it's based on a limited exam and it misses important outside records that contain key pieces to your VA disability claim. This is why completeness matters. This is also why you should submit those records yourself instead of checking the box to let the VA go and get those records to ensure that they have everything. The third thing to consider is that they may be answering different questions. This happens more than the veterans realize. One doctor may be speaking generally about whether two conditions can be related in medicine, and the VA examiner might have been given a specific question, and so they may be answering a more narrow question of whether this veteran's condition is at least as likely as not related to service based on some specific things or a specific question from the rating official. They're not exactly the same question, so you're going to get two very different opinions in that case. The fourth thing to consider is one opinion may address causation while the other fails to address aggravation. We've seen this a lot. We'll see a lot of denials saying that one causes another, but the entire basis of the claim is aggravation. They're completely different medical legal concepts. Causation asks whether one thing caused another. Aggravation is different and asks whether one condition worsened another, likely beyond the normal progression of the disease. You'll get two very different opinions depending on what view you're looking at. If a private medical opinion only discusses causation and the veteran's real path is aggravation, that opinion may sound supportive, but still misses the stronger argument. It's very important that you have someone writing this who actually knows what the connection is and what you're doing and what they're doing in relation to this. Another issue is something called differential diagnosis. That phrase sounds pretty technical, but it really means a doctor is considering multiple possible explanations and ruling things out. If the VA examiner will say something like, this is more likely due to age, weight, smoking, family history, or non-service connected factors, and the private opinion never addresses those possibilities, the VA may see that private medical opinion as less complete. This is why I say cherry picking isn't a good idea. Don't omit pieces. You want to include the entire picture of the veteran's case and rule in and out different factors. It doesn't mean that those factors automatically defeat a service connection. It just means that they need to be addressed thoughtfully. The VA materials the official VA materials note that medical opinions may be needed to determine if a disability is related to service or a service-connected condition. So, disagreements often come down to how clearly each opinion actually explains the relationship and what information they have in order to make that opinion. So here's what veterans should really take away from all of this. If you have a private medical opinion, you need to be thinking or asking, did the provider review the relevant records? Do they have all of the relevant records? Did they explain the reasoning? Did they provide a rationale that makes sense as to what they're connecting it? Did they address other possible causes that were in your medical record? That's not always the case, but often there are multiple causes. Did they discuss causation and aggravation where it was appropriate? Most of the time, we're talking about aggravation. Did they tailor that opinion to your facts, not just general medicine? It's important to tie it back to you in your case and your evidence. Those questions matter. A private opinion can absolutely be valuable. And in some cases, it may be stronger than the VA opinion. But the strength comes from the logic, not the conclusion, not the doctor or other provider who's writing it. This is why I tell veterans not to think in terms of private versus VA. It's not about that. It's which opinion better explained the situation, which opinion actually fits the facts of your case, and which opinion answers the real questions of service connection. That's the right framework. That's what you should be focused on. If you already have an opinion and you're not sure why it may be getting challenged, a detailed medical evidence review, something that we do all the time, can help identify whether the issue is the records, it's the wording of the letter, is the rationale, or failure to address the right theory in the connection. There are many reasons why, in analyzing your decision letters and really figuring out the why can be very helpful in deciding your next steps.